the world and just try to help equip job seekers. It's all about, having the tools. The problem that you need to solve, but it's like standing in front of your broken pipes going, well, now what? So the goal is to actually give you the tools, give you the resources, give you the mechanisms that are actually going to help you fix those leaky pipes.
Awesome. And I just want to encourage anybody that this is a mentorship call. So if you have questions at any point, please drop them in chat. We love it to be a little bit more organic than, oh, here's the 10 questions that sound good. If you have something that's not top of mind, please do that. If you have insights, please also drop that, because we're here to learn from each other. So this should be fun and engaging, but today we are talking about job search preparedness. And I'll tell you, when I was first trying to get back into tech, I said I have to be more educated, and I never really thought, should I be preparing for the interview? So I guess, wait, what? You have to prepare for an interview? I thought you kind of just like applied. So you just apply and look for jobs, right? So yeah, feel free to take that away.
No, I think that's such a good point, Jacqueline, and something that I tell all of my candidates. I'm prepping several candidates a week that are going through our interview process. And the thing I tell all of my candidates, the purpose of the interview is to gather data. Companies look to the interview process. They formulate the questions. They set up the expectations. Hey, Jacqueline, I need you to ask about this, and I need Terry, I need you to ask about that, and Thomas, you go get info about this. It is by design, because the goal is to gather data to help us make a confident and informed hiring decision. So a lot of folks coming to it, just like you're saying, coming into it with, oh, I'm just going to wing it, or I'm just going to be myself, because if they don't want to hire me, then I don't want to be there. And that's the wrong approach. You have to, first of all, understand what is the problem we're trying to solve here with this open role. Secondly, what is the data that's going to tell you that, yeah, I'm qualified and able to solve that problem through these specific actions? And then any other kind of cultural fit. I don't like the term culture fit. However, I do appreciate it in my current employer, because we can very easily tie that back to leadership principles. It's all grounded in LPs. And so different companies are going to kind of have different little, whatever they think matters. Google, you could talk about Googliness. If anybody could define it for me, I might have stayed longer, but that's another story. But every kind of company has their own thing. And so here's the bottom line, and I use this line all the time. You could be the best mathematician in the world. You could be a rock star at calculus and formulas and doing all those numbers, but now you're going to sit for a math test. And remember what your math teacher told you? You got to show your work. You couldn't just write the answer down. You had to show your work. How did you get to that equation? And that is how interviews should be structured. It's about showing the work that I did this same thing, or I did something similar that's transferable. I was able to show you how I got to this answer. And that's the data that we use, or should be using, to make a hiring decision.
Yeah, I love that. Especially when it comes to showing your work. And I think that sometimes it's hard to, I struggle personally with quantifying, or, putting that quantitative data on a resume, because I wasn't measuring it, or
Right.
It's a really hard thing to measure. So sometimes that was a challenge. But do you have any insights? I guess, like, I know we have some that are attending boot camps right now for coaching. My initial thought is, make sure you have a GitHub account, make sure you're contributing. But that's just me coming from a Microsoft perspective of, if you can literally show your work and what you've done, then you have a place to point hiring managers at any that want to see, how do you code, or do you have comments in the code so we can understand it? I know not enough site to document, but it's kind of important. So.
Exactly. Well, and you have to think of it in the terms of, most of us have had, even coming out of the military. In the military, you have review boards and promo boards and, those kinds of things. So what are the things that you're documenting to prove that you're ready for the next level? Or if you're in more traditional civilian employment, what are the things that your boss talks to you about during your annual review, or during your weekly check-ins, or during your twice a year, whatever that looks like. So every job has a set of expectations. Every job says a level 5 software engineer at ABC company should be able to perform these things. Are you showing through your resume and your interview that you have done those things or can do those things? So, little trickier for career transition folks, obviously, because you may not have done those things yet. You're looking for an opportunity to do them for the first time, maybe. And so then it becomes, here's the quantifiable things like Jacqueline's talking about with GitHub profiles or group projects or school, things that you can put on a portfolio. You've done something that can prove this expertise or this ability to transition and hopefully learn. And so if you're targeting entry level, that's fine. But think about, how did you know you got a good grade? How did you know you got a promo? How did you know you deserved a raise at your last review? Those are the questions that should be answered on the resume and through the interview.
Yeah. One thing I just started actually this week is I made a little email folder for myself that is literally for review. And it kind of happened because a customer was really ditching us publicly about a problem that was in my area. And a friend of mine was like, hey, have you seen this post? And then I was like, well, no, but I'll address it. And we kind of drove it in. And then he ended up coming back, giving a whole bunch of kudos. And I was like, okay, this is kind of review stuff right here. So, and it's a small thing because it's what I would do anyway. I want to help my customer, but to put it in there to remind me later in 6 months when I am doing the review process. Oh, right. That thing happened and it was kind of a cool deal. So I think anybody could use that even in school. It's like, oh, there was this really hard group project, but we had delivered this thing, and having that for you to remember is probably kind of gold. Like Anthony, you're quiet today. So if you have any insights, please join in.
Sorry, I just got a little busier today than normal.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, I'm usually at my home office. Say I'm on the job site here in San Antonio, Texas, building a big 3-story data center. Yeah, preparedness. And some of the things I've learned to pick up on is, I think I've said this before, is I don't remember the good things I do. I don't remember the hard problems I solve. So what I forced myself to do years ago, and this is something I actually learned from the military, which is totally unrelated. I learned in the military that when I'd hurt myself, my older brother was in the military before me. And he's like, every time you hurt yourself, go to the sick call, get it recorded. You're not going to remember you busted your knee or you messed up your back really bad that time. You're going to walk it off. You're going to forget 5 years from now. So he's like, go in there every time you get hurt. And even if it doesn't bother you right now, just go in there and document it. So when I got out, that correlated wonderfully in my first few jobs, in that I don't remember the good things I do. I don't remember them. I don't remember the details. So I've kept for years now a running project list. And I'll go in there and be like, oh yeah, I took a company through SOC 2, Type 2, and ISO 27001 certification. I've never done an audit before. I've never stood that kind of thing up. But in my project list, there's this really cool bullet I wrote about the people I worked with, what I did, some of the hard challenges. And I do that every time I come across something that my head tells me to do these things. Like document it, because you're going to forget in a year. You're going to forget in 2 years. And I just went through my project list before this call, and I noticed this thing I wrote from every performance evaluation I've gotten. There's always a similar note. And it's like, Anthony just goes. He doesn't need supervision. He just goes off on his own. And so it was really neat to see that, because I just didn't think about it. But it was kind of like, oh yeah, it kind of is what my thing is. I just run. So the importance of documenting the cool things you're doing throughout your life are going to come in handy when you find a job that maybe you didn't have all the experience for, but you're going for that comparable experience. So you go back to your project list and you're like, oh, I totally solved this audit related problem over here. Let me pull that one out and use it in my application for the job I'm looking for now. So I think that's something that I use personally. I don't know, Amy, if you encounter those things out in your side of the world. But
absolutely. No, I think that's all brilliant. And I think this also speaks to the need for that primary resume. So a lot of folks get really worked up about, oh, I got to redo my resume for every job, and oh, it's not fair and it's so much work. So I always recommend a primary or a main resume that literally just you data dump everything you've ever done, all the jobs you've had, all the accomplishments, all the details. This is not the resume you attach to your application, by the way. This is your living, breathing document that adjusts and ebbs and flows as your career kind of or a federal resume. Actually, to Scott's point, you probably are going to include that one if you're going to go work for the government, because they want everything plus a note from your mother. So just keep that in mind. But so you have this big old lengthy, several pages length document which lists everything. And so to Anthony's point, you get a great review or you accomplish some new thing, go write it down, go put that on that doc real quick, drop it in that folder Jacqueline's talking about. And then when you find that job that's not a federal job that you want to apply to, you take that big old meaty document and you start kind of filtering the stuff that's not relevant. So you keep on typically, most of the employment, like for my resume, for example, I have a section at the bottom that's previous recruiting experience. And I just kind of break down, like, here's all the agency stuff I did. Because I've got a good 12 years of agency recruiting under my belt that's not necessarily as relevant. It's old, it's early 2000s. And, I want to kind of show, like, yeah, I've been doing this a long time, but you don't need to know necessarily the details that I had on there from 15 years ago. It's not going to be as impactful for the roles I'm applying to today. But by having that, you can literally take that big old resume, whittle it down within probably 10 minutes, make it more reflective of the role that you're applying to, and fire it off. I don't think anybody should be editing a resume more than 5 or 10 minutes if you've done the work up front. And like what Anthony and Jacqueline are saying, you're kind of documenting everything live as it happens, and then you just take a few minutes to tweak before you submit.
Okay. Your answer just now kind of gave me more questions, because that's the way I just am. But it's kind of the concept of relevant work experience, and particularly with someone like me who had a huge employment gap, but I was busy and volunteered and tried side hustles and building my own businesses and all these things. And then I'm trying to prove that I can be technical, even though my last tech job was prior to year 2000, actually doing COBOL Y2K remediation, so that did quite well. And I was like, well, I want people to know that I was rocking it in a Fortune 500 company.
Exactly.
For 20 years. Is there, would you say we should be calling down to just relevant work experience? I guess, how do you address that gap? If that's, and I know that's not even the topic at hand, so we could.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And I think a lot of people are facing this because they've been out of work for, a few years due to COVID, or they've been, just separating from the military, which we all know is this massive culture shift in every facet of your life. It's a very strange, I would just, I was an Army wife for many years. I'm an Air Force mom now. And I went to go visit my son at the Air Force Base, and they have my picture in the system from 2002. It's the strangest thing. I'm like, I don't look like that anymore, but okay, thanks. So, it's this completely different world, this completely different shift in the way that you address people and the way you communicate and the way you document. It's so different. So the key there, and going back to your question about, well, I did this stuff 20 years ago, does it matter? Yes, but make sure that you're targeting it to the current audience. Not everyone speaks in acronyms.
Right.
Not everyone, I know COBOL because I recruited some of those for Y2K.
I'm glad the world didn't shut down, just for the record.
So, but is anybody coding in that today? Yeah, actually some.
Yes, I am actually the unicorn for those rare jobs that are out there where that's I need somebody who knows what this is.
So it's all about making sure that you're tying it to the relevance that the person on the other end is looking for. So if me as the recruiter, I'm going to give you those hints in the job description. I'm looking for expertise in this, this, and this. So that should be the number one focus. And then we have our supporting documents, right? Then we have the supporting, and here's how I can prove that I know these things. So that's when we may want to kind of pull out some of those older, hat tricks that we had from way back in the day. And it shows the evolution as well. And especially if you're looking at, more senior level roles or bigger ownership type roles, we want to see that progression. We want to see that, Jacqueline started out as this, individual contributor kind of working on one narrow thing, and then expanded her scope and expanded her reach and expanded her program, purview. And then also the volunteer work, the the side hustles, the things that you did to not only maintain that initial knowledge that you have, but also to keep up with the change in technology and just the, I mean, if I were to tell you, well, yeah, I'm a recruiter and I accept paper applications in the mail and I review them on, and write notes on them in my red pen, you're going to look at me cross-eyed because that's just not how it's done anymore. So even though the process hasn't changed, I still review resumes and make notes. I'm not doing it with pen and pencil anymore. I'm doing it now in an ATS with, my keyboard. So it's still very relevant, but it's how am I positioning that so the person isn't getting hung up on, oh, this is a 20-year-old technology. We don't use that. So you just word it a little bit differently to make sure that it's kind of speaking to the person's immediate need today.
Sure. Yeah, and that reminds me a little bit, and and Devin, I do see your hand up. I'll get to your question in just a second. I tell people a lot, like, Google power verbs, because they start to they allow you to kind of look at who you are and the powerful things you consistently do. So when I was doing coaching with fitness, it was leadership, and leadership translates regardless of whether or not it was fitness or what my current role. Am I leading a thing or doing mentorship live? That's leadership in itself. So it's a big, bold. I've done leadership consistently throughout my life. So I and those words helped me a lot to kind of say, okay, what have I done to bring it to make a more cohesive picture? And then Devin, your hand's up, and feel free to chime in.
Thank you. In my boot camp this week, they've been pushing a lot about cover letters and looking online at everything that's out there. There's a wide range from it should be 3 sentences long to, the full page. So I'm just kind of wondering what your thoughts are on this dreaded cover letter.
She probably has 15 videos on her recruiting for yoga pants.
I just got on that today, so I'll look at it.
And here's why I'm kind of I'm preparing myself. I'm just gonna, I would question, first of all, is the cover letter actually required? If a cover letter is required by the company you want to work for, then by all means, we can talk about how to write a good one. I do have a video on this, actually, Jacqueline, so you can go to my YouTube channel. I will tell you, and I actually finally took a screenshot and just started sending it to people because I was so tired of arguing about this. The company I currently work for, the career page specifically says, we do not accept cover letters. Please do not send one. I think it says it a little nicer than that, but the message is, no, thank you. We're good. We just want your resume, and that's that. So I think that we sometimes over-index too much on the things that get a lot of attention, but are not necessarily impactful to the audience that you're trying to get in front of. So I would be very cautious, first of all, why am I writing this cover letter? First, do I need it? Does the company even accept it? Is it required? And then the second thing, if the answer is yes, that the application demands it, or you just feel like there's something you really need to say in that cover letter, what is it and how are we wording it? Because the history of the cover letter, I talk about this in the video as well. History of the cover letter comes back from when we literally took a piece of paper that was your resume. We put a piece of paper over it, which introduced the piece of paper underneath it. This is my resume, and it's for this specific job at this specific company, and is why I'm interested. The online application, the email that you're sending, the networking email, whatever, that's the new cover letter. So if I'm sending an email to Jacqueline and saying, hey, Jacqueline, I know you're hiring over there at Microsoft. I think I'd be a great fit for this job. I've applied. Here's my why. Resume is attached. That email I just sent her is my cover letter. So the cover letter is intended to be that introduction. It's that warm up. It's the reason why Jacqueline should open my resume. Now, sometimes we don't need the cover letter and we just go straight to the resume. You've applied to this specific role. I already know your name and the role you're interested in, and obviously the company, because you're coming here to me, right? And so it negates the need for the cover letter. So the cover letter should really only be used if required, and also if there is some additional information that is for some reason not reflected on the resume that is going to be a difference maker in whether or not you should be invited to interview.
It's really great advice. One thing that I was told early, like when I was in the job search process, was it's like, if you have to do a cover letter, you may want to pull up the job description and say, you're looking for this, and I have done this, and do like 3 short bullet points on why you think you qualify for that job. And that kind of, that little bit of template in my mind helps a little bit with the cover letter idea, and that's if it's required. But I'm seeing a trend where most people or most companies are not asking for that unless they're government work, truly. Like when I was applying for school districts, yes, they actually wanted a copy of my high school diploma. So do you know what I had to go through to find that? Because I'm like, well, I definitely have one, but where in the world did I put the dang thing? So like, things like that happen. And
Yeah.
you know, and then they probably wonder why a lot of people aren't applying, actually. So that's a whole different topic. But I guess another question top of mind is, like, how far in advance should you start getting prepared for a job interview, especially if we're talking transitioning veterans or people in boot camps? You know, you're on the 16-week course. Some would say 16 weeks, start working on it on day 1. And others might say, no, wait till you actually are ready to be hired. But
so that's a good one. Here's my thought. You want to start setting the groundwork probably in week 1 of those 16 weeks. And what I mean by that is reaching out to former boot camp grads, people who have a similar background as you, people who came out of the same branch of the service as you, people who are now doing the job that you're hoping to land at the companies you want to be at. Start setting those little hooks, and it's just an introduction. It's just, hey, I'm Amy. I'm just entering this boot camp that I know you graduated from last year. I'd love to connect with you for future networking. I'm not asking you for anything. I'm not asking you for a job. I'm not asking you for a referral. I just want to be in your network. Okay, cool. So now I've planted that seed. And then it's, oh, hey, that was a good comment, or hey, I like that post. Then you start making those, like Jacqueline and I are buds now, just because we've, just chatted with each other on LinkedIn a little bit and comment on each other's stuff, and it's created this really cool relationship, at least for me. I hope Jacqueline agrees.
Yeah, no, I don't think I would have invited you if I thought.
It's planting those seeds, right? And then that turned into an invitation to come speak with all of you, which I'm so honored to be part of. And the job search is no different. So now, having made that connection 16 weeks ago, now I'm graduating. Now I'm ready to start really getting serious and putting together my projects and putting together my resumes. I've already have these warm-ish leads that hopefully can then translate into referrals or direction or guidance into the next role. So, and I think the same for transitioning military. Even if you're coming out with a degree and with all the expertise and you can walk right into your next gig, it's still a really good idea to start planting the seeds with those individuals who can get you to that next step. And there are 3 kinds of people that you should be targeting. Number 1, obviously, people who do what you do and have that similar background. They've had a similar experience. They've driven down the same road as you. They can tell you where the potholes are and how to avoid them. The second person is the person who will manage someone like you. Nobody feels the pain of an open position like a hiring manager.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody. Recruiters feel it because hiring managers are breathing down our neck. Hiring managers feel it because they're either doing the work themselves or they have a team that's stretched thin trying to catch up and do the work that is not being done because we have this big gap where hopefully you're going to be. The third person is the recruiter. So recruiters are usually pretty good at telling you, these are the roles I recruit for. These are the kind of people I talk to every day, those kinds of things. So targeting on those 3 kinds of people, it's a slightly different approach with each one because you want to speak to everyone's individual emotional currency. But those are the people that you should be targeting those networking efforts towards. And then once you kind of planted that seed and started building that relationship, then you hit them with, the resume or the application or the, hey, I'm really interested and now's the time for me to, make that next step.
Yeah, it goes back that all of these points, like you very early on, you said when you network, and I need to stress when you network means now. It truly, And again, like Amy and I, this first time we're actually meeting like in person. But I feel like I have this really solid relationship just because, or at least, where it's blossoming. It's a few months old, so like how solid, but, but it's like,
still the honeymoon period.
I look for her content every day because it's interesting and makes me laugh. Like she did one where she was dressed up as Princess Leia this week, and it startled me so much I just laughed out loud. So why not follow anybody that makes you smile? But then I can't stress the importance of liking but commenting on somebody's post, especially if it resonates with you, and it allows us to never forget you're there. And again, with the open to work banner, if you are commenting on my stuff and you have open to work shining right there, I see it. And then eventually, I'm your cheerleader. I get excited when you're going for job interviews and then, I'll even be like, well, what happened? How did it go? Or, I've been really sad when someone said, oh, I didn't get the role. And I was like, what's wrong with that company? I have no idea how the interview went, but I'm still their cheerleader and I want them to succeed. And I don't know these people. I just know that they've interacted and they didn't let me forget they existed. Plus, when you comment on someone else's stuff, your chance of your original content then showing up in their feed is a lot higher, and it can grab that attention. So this is my passion spot, is like, you got to network. I wish I had really understood LinkedIn when I had this 20-year employment gap, because my answer to closing that way faster than 3 years was in that networking, and I didn't. I was overwhelmed. I'm like, well, what do? I have a LinkedIn profile. Why is nobody hiring me? So I guess that's another question all on its own is, there's a lot of information out there on, there's a hiring shortage, there's a talent shortage, and all of these things. And the impression could be, well, let me just make a good LinkedIn profile and someone will find me. That's not what I would think of as job search preparedness at all. So.
Absolutely. It's an approach, if you're in one of those really crazy, high growth and you've got all the right skills and I'll tell you, recruiting is ridiculous right now. You cannot swing a loaf of bread in a grocery store without hitting somebody who's looking to hire a recruiter. So I am in that weird spot of, I can't even keep up with all the messages from and that's not even just people trying to hire me. There's all kinds of people who want me to hire them too. But so I'm in this weird place of like a very privileged spot of really having a lot of opportunities coming my way. However, I also am taking advantage of that by being very much myself on LinkedIn. The person in the silly costumes that sometimes, says a potty word, those kinds of things, like that's the person that's going to come work with you if you really want to recruit me, just so you know. So there's, kind of this double-edged sword of, being out there, being yourself, being transparent and authentic, because that's the person that's going to show up in the office or on the video call in the workday. I was taught to network. Very simple tip. And you can do this on LinkedIn as well. This was in person back in, I don't know, the 90s or something. But I used to shake like a leaf. I was terrified. I'm really an introvert. I'm going to go nap after this because this takes everything out of me. And then I got to like recharge and then come back and do it again. So I love it, but it like in increments, right? I can't go all day. I'm not that kind of extrovert. So I remember I had this boss, Michelle, who's wonderful. And we used to go to Chamber of Commerce mixers. So this is back in the day, a lot of business is done in person, shaking hands and stuff. And I would just stand next to her, just shaking, trying not to cry because I was so terrified to be in a room with strangers that she wanted me to talk to. And she would walk over to a group of people and she'd stick her hand out and say, hi, my name's Michelle. Have you met my friend Amy? And she would introduce me and she would tell them something about me. Well, Amy is one of my recruiters and she's working on blah, 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 blah. And it allowed for this really warm handoff and introduction to where now I could have this conversation with this person without shaking and crying because Michelle did the hard work for me. Do that on LinkedIn. Comment on someone's post. Jacqueline, I love what you said about this. Hey, Anthony, this might be of interest to you. Hey, Jacqueline, do you know Anthony? Let me tell you a little bit about him. And so you're doing this. There's not only a little bit of a kind of a kind pay it forwardness going on there. You've just done Anthony a solid by introducing him to Jacqueline, but they're both going to remember you when it's time for an introduction or when another conversation sparks that might be interesting to you. So you can do that. And you can also ask your friends to do it if you're scared.
Yeah, high five from the fellow introvert over here who.
Yeah, it's hard for us. It's really hard.
People are like, no, but you like people, so you can't be an introvert. I'm like, I can like people. Like, that does not disqualify me from liking people. It just after things like this, I will be energized for a while, and then by 3 p.m. I will be so exhausted I can't talk to anyone. So,
Yep.
that's the way it is. And we have another hand up, Rana, or is it Raina? How would you pronounce your name?
It's Rana. You're correct.
Okay, great.
So kind of going along this conversation about having someone kind of do the handoff for you. And I recently was in a similar situation where one of my boot camp friends knew a recruiter in the Pittsburgh area, and she kind of set up this email like handoff, and supposedly the recruiter was interested in chatting with me. And then I personally reached out after that handoff and nothing. So is there like a proper way to introduce yourself to a recruiter in that situation? Is it just they're busy? Do you know, like, is there a good thing to do, or is it just situational?
Yeah, my gut reaction immediately is that recruiter got overwhelmed with something else. I really, it is very hard for me, and this is not because I'm, recruiter blind to our foibles and issues. We have them. I know that. I get tagged in more bad recruiter behavior than I could think, I never expect. But my initial reaction is that recruiter probably got overwhelmed with something else. I actually have a template or multiple templates on my website, recruitinginyogapants.com, where I actually give you word for word what to say to a recruiter when reaching out over LinkedIn, email, doesn't matter. And you want to speak to that person's love language or emotional currency. So what does a recruiter care about? A recruiter cares about getting high priority recs off their desk. So those high priority recs are often the ones that we're running our mouths about on social media. Oh, I really need a mechanical engineer with reliability engineering experience. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. If you come into my inbox and you're like, hey, I saw that post and here's why I'm a great fit. Oh, by the way, I applied to this requisition. And also, if not you, if I've got the wrong recruiter here, please forward it to someone else. Give me permission ahead of time, because I don't like to share people's information without them knowing. If you say, oh, hey, can you give me, the recruiter who handles software on your team, can you give me their email? No, I'm not comfortable doing that. Now look, you can give my email to anybody. I don't care, but I put that out as a blanket, like, bring me all the people. I don't mind, but not every recruiter does. So and I'll do the same thing for job seekers. I'm not going to forward your resume to a colleague unless you've indicated that that's okay. Mm-hmm. So my advice when reaching out to a recruiter, so there's both, to your point, Rana, the follow-up when there's been an introduction as well as a cold introduction. Cold intro is, hey, I know you work here doing these things. I'm a fit for this specific role. I've applied. Here's the job ID. Here's the why. Here's my availability. Pass it on if it's not for you. And then for the follow-up, I have a 3-part rule. Number 1 is just, hey, thanks so much for the intro. I'd love to get on a call with you. Here's my availability. I can work with yours, whatever is the next step, appropriate next step. No response. Secondly, hey, just checking back in. Here's a cool bit of news, or here's a tidbit, or here's something I didn't tell you in the first message. Looking forward to next step. Okay, done. No response. Hey, I'm just closing the loop here. Appreciate the opportunity to have connected with you. If it's okay, maybe I'll check in with you in 6 months. I'm just going to graciously, say bye for now and go on about my business. So you worded a little nicer than that. But I will tell you what recruiters respond very poorly to. Even when we deserve it, it doesn't feel good to be shamed. And I get these all the time where, well, if you didn't want to help, you could have just said so. This is the first time I'm reading your message. I didn't even know you'd email me these other 3 emails. So I was behind, or whatever. And so just by, giving us a little bit of grace, giving us an actual specific call to action, and then giving us an out. You can forward it to your friend. Those are that's like the secret sauce. If someone approaches me kindly with not only a call to action, but then also an escape pod, I am going to bend over backwards for that person just because they were nice to me. I can't tell you how many people are not nice to me in my inbox. So just being nice stands out, which is very sad but accurate.
Yeah. I love the phrase that's used a lot in Microsoft is here's a gentle ping. And
Yes.
and I guess everybody probably uses it, but it really taught me that especially when I was doing release management, because it was a lot of, hey, have you done this? Have you done this? Have you done this? I felt like I was nagging people all the time. And then I started realizing my inbox was a disaster of volume, and I missed things too. And I just started building a little bit more empathy that maybe they're not seeing my message because there's a fire that came out this week that they're putting out. And
100%.
all I need to do is remind them, like, this ask is still on the table. Can we make sure that this is being done? Or this really is a high priority issue too. I understand you're busy. Just that nice, kind way of approaching it. Rarely did I have to actually pull out a sledgehammer and be like, seriously, I need you to do this now or else we're not shipping.
Right. And sometimes it's that dire. I mean, look, if somebody has an interview scheduled with me tomorrow and they don't have instructions on where to go or what to log into, then it's time for the sledgehammer. And I like sledgehammers in all caps in the subject line. Action required, response needed, though I learned that at Microsoft too, you know what I mean? And then everybody replies with ACK, which took me a while to figure out. I'm like, ACK? Are you coughing up a hairball? What are we doing? I don't understand. And now I understand. You're acknowledging my message. Got it. Okay, that's good.
Hey, Amy, I had a couple of questions for you. Going to the topic, it reminded me, it's been a few years since I've been on the software development team, so I know our climate for hiring is a little different now. But one of the challenges I found when I was in the software development side is I would encounter lots of folks graduating from boot camps in the Seattle area. Lots of veterans contact me while I was on teams like that. And I did not have a lot of success helping any boot camp graduate land an SDE role. I was able to get them into TPM roles, but I could never help someone get into the SDE side. I even had interns that would come in and we still couldn't transition them into full-time employees. Could you tell us maybe with your history, lots of technical recruiting, some of the more effective places for someone graduating from a boot camp to apply? And what are some of the more likely roles that someone from a boot camp would be able or be successful in getting with that knowledge?
This is so important because there is this standoff between boot camp, CS degrees. And people tend to fall in one of these two camps, no pun intended, where, boot camp is all you need and they teach you how to be a full stack developer. No, they're not, first of all, but we'll get to that. So there's this, I learned everything I need to know in 16 weeks. How dare you not hire me? Versus you have the CS grad or the more traditional, 4-year degree crowd that's saying, oh, no, you don't have computer science fundamentals. You're never going to make it as an engineer. The truth is somewhere in the middle. Okay. I've seen boot camp grads out code and out hustle people with PhDs. And I've seen, people with scrappy startup experience out hustle, people who've grown up in FANG. So you can't necessarily make a judgment call on that data alone. However, if you are that boot camp person, you got to realize you're up against this competition and the way companies hire. So understanding how companies hire is number one, the most important research you're probably going to do before you start hitting apply. You want to target, so when you think about coming into a brand new industry, whether you're coming from boot camp, I would say the same even for my traditional college hires, but when you're coming brand new into a paid position as an engineer, you want to make sure that number one, the company is structured in a way that they could hire someone that's going to require additional training and ramp, because you just do. There's no shame in that, and there's also no getting around it. You just do. And secondly, that the company has the infrastructure, the senior engineers, the training capability, the room for mentoring. All of those things have to exist, or you're going to be hired as an engineer and you're going to fall on your face because you're not going to be equipped to be kind of that full-time, full stack engineer at a mid-level, level 62 or something out the gate. You're just not. I was hired into Microsoft at a lower level than I expected because I had things to learn and ramp. So that's just, again, understanding how companies hire and the effort that they can put into growing you is very important. So if I'm a boot camp grad, I'm looking for companies that have, number one, already hired boot camp grads. That's a good indicator. So, oh, I see 3 other people have done this. That means I can do it too. Secondly, I'm going to look for programs like there's MSSA, I think that Microsoft is still doing in conjunction with the military. There's returnships for folks who've been out of work for a period of time. We see that a lot. I know Amazon's doing some cool stuff with like apprenticeships out of fulfillment centers, things like that, offering training or taking folks who've done kind of non-traditional training. So understand you really want to do the research. And these are great introductory questions to people, potential peers, potential managers. How does your company hire people with backgrounds like this? And make sure that you're finding those companies that can do that, and that you're now positioning yourself as one of those applicants. The other option is look at smaller companies. So a lot of smaller companies maybe financially can't compete with the big orgs, or maybe there's, my daughter got a job this way as a lawyer because she was applying to jobs and COVID had kind of wrecked everything, and she's, the industry isn't what it was when she decided to be a lawyer. And she found a small company and she said, Mom, I don't have everything they're asking for, but I see this posting all the time. They keep reposting it. I have a feeling they can't find somebody. What do you think? I said, shoot your shot, girl. I'll help you. So I kind of helped her get a resume together and all that. And they actually told her, well, yeah, we kind of wanted somebody with at least a year of experience, but you were a paralegal for a while and you do have the degree and you do, we can do the math, and okay, we're going to take. So you can also find those smaller companies where maybe you're not the exact perfect fit, but you have enough of the raw ingredients or enough experience from boot camp and from side hustles that you can show, here's how I know I can do this job. So you got to really dig in and understand how companies hire, what is the infrastructure to support you, and what are the chances that they may be willing to take. A larger company, an established organization, is far less likely to take chances outside of a program built for those chances. So the apprenticeships, the returnships, the MSSAs, things like that. So in the absence of that, the road directly into FANG is a lot rockier, because that is their new hire pipeline. That is the entry level pipeline. They don't I couldn't touch people who were currently in school when I was an industry recruiter in FANG. There's a rule, hands off. I'd get my hand slapped. That had to go through one of these programs, student programs, apprenticeship programs, etc. So understand how companies hire and target those people.
I think that's a really great point on, like my son is getting ready to graduate, and he is like this stellar software engineer. It's insane the stuff he can produce at his age. It blows me away. But even like I'm in a division with teams that he would love to be on, and they're still like, no, he has to go through the college process that we have. We cannot circumvent that. And if I try, I will probably get thanks for your referral, Jacqueline. But he has to go through this process. And that's probably where you see that handoff of computer science and boot camp, is because the college degree has been around longer than boot camp. So it gave our I call them cruise ship companies because they're really hard to turn, like the culture change. It's hard to take. We have the cruise ship process in place for how to get entry level. And you're coming in saying, but I don't have that thing that is built in already. So now I have to find a way outside of that, and it's it is just more challenging. Not impossible. Like I've learned today how to do a better internal referral, so maybe I'll have more luck. But with helping others. But the acknowledgement is there just aren't enough. The demand is out there, and it does take time to onboard. And I mean, it was probably a year before I sat in a meeting and I was like, wait, I just understood everything they talked about. And
absolutely.
It just takes so much time. So the company has to have the capital as well to let you come on board to make that impact that you're looking for.
The way I've historically understood, internships, MSSA program, boot camp, hiring, all that kind of stuff. This is the way it's been explained to me. So correct me if I'm missing something important here, but this was intended there's enough raw material there's enough of a foundation started that we can bring this person in and give them projects. But that first 18 months is learning and growing. You are not coming in as a boot camp grad and just automatically writing code in production and shipping features. It is not going to happen. You are going to come in and work in like a test environment, and you're going to, learn the systems, and you're going to get up to speed on, if you've been a front end person, maybe they'll kind of start working you more towards a full stack or whatever. But there's a process, there's a training plan that is put in place. There's a launch plan. They call it different things depending on the company. And you go through these kind of step-by-step tests almost, or these milestones that you have to pass. And then, like Jacqueline said, a year in, you're finally like, okay, now I know what you're saying. now I can put code in production.
Yeah, I said my first year at Microsoft was like being in the Charlie Brown classroom where it was like, wah, 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 wah. And I'm like, what in the world? I don't know what they're talking about. And I had so many patient people that just let me ask questions and questions and questions. And you need that, you want that environment where you have that person that you can drive crazy. Like I always thought I was driving him crazy because I was constantly asking questions. But in hindsight,
exactly.
Like, oh, you onboarded really fast. And I was like, it took me a year. Like, what are you talking about? But you want to be prepped for success as well when you
exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And I think that goes back to, and I hope, Anthony, I know this is a very, very long-winded and winding road answer to your question, but I think it goes back to having the right expectations. A lot of boot camp grads, I've talked to them, and they've been sold this idea that they're going to come in and be a senior dev out the gate. And maybe in a very small organization with the right, training and the right projects under your belt, maybe. But for the most part, this is the first rung on that career ladder. We're just trying to get you on the ladder. Mm-hmm. We're not trying to get you up to, the top tier and you're like a principal engineer doing all these fancy features. We just want to get you on the ladder. So be patient with yourself. Get on that first rung and then start thinking about, now what do I have to learn to get to the next rung, and so on and so on. So take it for the entry-level opportunity it is, but also recognize that companies have to have the infrastructure to support that rung of the ladder to get you up the rest of the way.
And one last thing to follow up on that, contract roles. So in my previous history, I was a contractor with Google, and after that I was a full-time employee at Oracle. And I've always been an advocate that contract isn't the sexiest thing, but it gets you in the door with like one interview. So
Amen.
So how would you recommend folks pursue or identify contract roles with either Amazon or Microsoft, because those are the largest groups to hire at that rate?
Absolutely. So you definitely, very similar to the research about how companies hire, right? Look for the agencies that have agreements with these big companies. We have written agreements. There's a whole centralized, and this is true for Microsoft and Google and Amazon. There is a centralized team process. You have to be an approved vendor, all that kind of stuff. And those are the people who hold those contract opportunities. So you want to figure out who those companies are. And you can usually find them because I'm a software engineer at Microsoft via, I don't know, a deco or whatever. That probably not a deco, but name an agency.
Launchpad, there's
there you go. So these, okay, I see Launchpad has okay, so I'm going to go register with that agency. I'm going to go talk to them. So I am a huge fan of contracting. I gave up a full-time position to take a contract role at Microsoft. I was there for 2 weeks. Didn't even know where the bathroom was. Didn't even know how to get to one building to another. Found out the recruiter that I was aligned to, I was a sourcer at the time, the recruiter I'm aligned to is leaving to another team. And I'm like, Adam, I just got here. What is it, me? and he said, oh, you should apply for my job. I said, Adam, I've been here 2 weeks. Oh, just apply. 6 weeks later, I was attending new employee orientation.
Very cool.
Yep. And we are running short on time already. This flew by. I still have to do it again. Questions. Yeah, you're welcome anytime. But I've got a schedule, so just tell me when you want to come back. Yeah, thank you, first of all, for being here. I did invite anybody who wants to put LinkedIn connection information in the chat. I do not have a meeting directly after this, so I'm willing to linger if anybody has specific questions or anything. Feel free. Amy, I know you probably have a very tight schedule. Or I
do have a hard stop. I'm going to go ahead and drop my connection as well. I will tell you, I got a bunch of pending connections. LinkedIn took away that accept all, which made me very sad.
Oh,
But I will do my best when I get a break this afternoon to go and accept all the new ones, because I will assume it's all of you. So I will see
right,
if I
right.
can
You'll
do
bypass
that. You can
it.
also follow me. I think you get the same access to me if you're following as well. But and I do prioritize folks with the green banner. I think when I first logged on, I heard some discussion around the green banner. So I will actually about once a week pull up all my outstanding requests, and I'm looking for people who are in my industry, people who, you know, maybe recruiters that I can connect with as well, and job seekers with the green banner, because I put so much job seeker content out there. I want to give job seekers first priority to access me and my network.
Yeah, wonderful. And one tiny question. You work for Project, and is it Quipper? How do you say
Kuiper.
it?
Oh yeah, how do you
Kuiper.
Get it right
pronounce
at all. Kuiper? All right.
Yeah.
That was my burning curiosity thing that I could ask you a text.
I've actually had people
Yes.
argue with me about it. Like, oh no, that's not how you say it. I'm like, sir, I work here. I think I know how to say it.
I'm in the daily calls where we talk about it. Thanks.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here. This insight was amazing. I wrote down several notes to later make more LinkedIn posts on. These are the 3 types of people you should be connecting with. Yeah. So thank you so much. And for everyone who
Thank you.
attended, we will have next week, we have Emily Mucken. That she might be how I found you.
I love her. She's
Yes.
amazing. Oh, y'all definitely got to come back for Emily. I'm so sad that she's no longer with Amazon, but she's off doing amazing things at Netflix. And she is one of my favorite people. I may show up just so I can hang out with Emily, just so I
You
can
might
like
as well,
sit
because
back
she's
and
amazing
admire
too.
her.
Yeah, and she's actually specifically talking about vendor roles and how to
That's
secure them,
awesome.
where to look for them, red flags on any of the vendor companies, and that's kind of how her path brought her to Netflix. So please join
Yeah.
us for her call. I'm really excited. She's an introvert too, so no, she'll want to nap after as well. So
Definitely.
we need a new hashtag like nap after meeting gang.
Exactly. We need to make it a thing. I do miss and Anthony, you probably remember these. I do miss the Google nap pods. That was one of the highlights. The free food, the nap pod. Let me put my shoes out here and close the curtain. Don't bother me. I don't have a meeting for another hour.
That is one of the reasons when I had the option to stay 100% remote, I was like, I could take a nap at 2 p.m. if I need it. So thank you all. That and the commuting. So
Amen to that.
and I understand you have to get out of here,
Thank
but
you
I
both.
just really,
Yeah. Thank
It
you
was
so much
nice
for
to
having
meet
me.
you.
It was a lot of fun. I will definitely be back anytime you have a spot for me, and wish everybody all the success in job search. Please go check out my content. If there's other burning questions I've not already answered on the channel, let me know. I'm always looking for video ideas. Usually I just wait till something makes me mad and then I go hit record, and then that week's video. But I would love any suggestions or things that y'all want to know about recruiting. I will make it
I'll
a
have
video
to have
for
you
you.
back just to talk about ATS, because that's one of those hot buttons that just drives. I can tell it every
That's a
time.
whole other. We're gonna need some alcohol. We're gonna need one of those buzzers for when Amy starts swearing. You know, you can beat me out. Yeah, we're gonna need some props for that. But I'm in.
All right. That's what we do.
Thank you
Makes
so
me
much.
glad.
Bye, Anthony. Bye,
Happy hour.
Jacqueline.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks
Bye.
so much.